it's just Martine and welcome to the start of the last Wonderthon vlog. Wonderthon has been a 16-day whirlwind competitive readathon created and hosted by Lizzie over at Lizzie's Literary Life. I'm the team captain for Team Giza. We, as of the points update last night, were in last place, but if you watched my vlog, you know that we did that on purpose and we have a plan. So I've got lots of books to talk to you about this weekend, including, I think, already 2 that I finished this morning. The first of which is Always and Forever, Lara Jean, which I'm giving 4 stars. So I think it's the lowest rated in that trilogy for me, but still awesome. It just gives me good feelings. I love Lara Jean as a character so much. And in this one, I do feel like Peter Kavinsky and Noah Centineau's portrayal of Peter Kavinsky were closer in line than some of the previous books. And then I also finished listening to I Felt the End Before It Came, which is a memoir from a queer ex-Jehovah's Witness, which was very interesting, and I gave 4 stars. I don't know, it was just interesting to see the perspective. I don't really know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses, and so it was interesting to get that insight. And he also mentioned some things that I've been researching recently in my degree program about secrecy in institutions and stuff, so that was interesting to hear his perspective on. And then it was just great to hear from another queer voice, so I really had a good time with that one. But I don't have many thoughts on it. I do recommend it. I'm going to stop talking to you though and get back to reading. Good afternoon. It's just before 4 p.m. and I just finished another audiobook. It was a short middle grade called Ruby Finley versus the Interstellar Invasion, and I'm giving it 3 stars. I did have trouble paying attention to it, and yet I really loved the main character. So at first I was do I give it 2.5 because it didn't hold my attention, but then I was the main character was just so awesome, I have to give it 3, and it was fun, and I think kids will love this book. And I think it also sends a very strong STEM forward message to young women, which I love, especially young women of color. So our main character, Ruby Finley, wants to be an entomologist when she grows up. She loves bugs and knows so much about them, and that was just so unique for me to read about and just made me really happy. And so one day she finds a bug, and it turns out it is not what it seems to be. And then things go from there. I used it for science points, and now my team is officially over the 50-point mark for our overall score, which is crazy because last night we were at 21 points, and one of the other teams was at 51. So I'm not gonna say I feel like we're catching up, because I don't feel that way, because they've also probably made progress, but I definitely feel like we've made leaps and bounds, and I'm really proud of us for that. I am going to have a game night with my roommate tonight, so I'll lose some reading time. It will be worth it though. But I have about an hour, maybe a little bit more, of reading that I can get done before that happens, so back to it. It's Friday night over here, and I just finished reading Jazz Owls, which is a book told in verse. I think it's a middle grade. It's about the Zoot Suit riots, which I didn't know anything about. I think I'd maybe heard the term Zoot Suit riots once or twice in my life, but I didn't really know anything about it. So I did learn a lot from this book, and the characters were pretty interesting. I'm only giving it 3 stars. 3 stars is still a good rating, but I wish I liked it even more than that. I shouldn't really connect with the way that the story was told, and it felt a little all over the place at times because we were jumping between so many characters, but because it was told in verse, each of their chapters was so short, we just kept skipping back and forth, and so it got a little confusing at times. But I did find this to be really interesting, and another example of a piece of historical fiction that does not just center around Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany is mentioned, the war is going on at the same time, but it's set in America during that time. It's set in Los Angeles, and so it covers a lot of things that we don't always talk about when it comes to the world wars. So I appreciated that. And it was a quick read to get my team some points. Hello, it's Saturday. I didn't feel like talking much today. I've read a lot. We have things to talk about. So first we'll talk about books, and then we'll talk about what's been happening in the server. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books to talk to you about. The first is Killjoy by Holly Jackson, which is a prequel to the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I said that in one take and I'm so proud of myself, which I have not read yet, but this prequel was really fun. It's an audiobook that's only like 3 hours, and it's basically following the characters as they do like a murder mystery party, which was so fun. I've never actually been able to attend a murder mystery party myself, so it was fun to like live vicariously through the characters. So I gave that 4 stars for just being a diddly dang good time. And then I finished reading Different for Boys by Patrick Ness, which is basically the story about this guy, I think his name is Ant, and his experience with his friend Charlie, who is very homophobic but also like maybe hiding something from himself. And it's really hard to explain, but it's an interesting little read, and I'm glad I read it. And I forget what I rated it, but I can find out right here. Let's see, 4 stars. I think my favorite part about it was the black boxes and how like aware the narrator was, and also some of the other characters, about the way that the story was being told. I thought that was really interesting. And then I quickly listened to Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes by Karen Slaughter, which is just a really quick, I don't know if you would call it a short story or a novella, but either way, I listened to that, and it's about this girl. She's a freshman in college, and she works at her school newspaper, and all of a sudden some girls go missing around her campus, so she's like looking into that. I gave that 3 stars. I had trouble paying attention to it for part of the time, but then the second half I like was really glued into and really liked some of the messages in it. I think it made some really great points, so that's on that. And then, okay, I think this is probably, even though I had like bigger reads that I finished today that I was proud of, this was my favorite read today. I'm holding the wrong thing. The Backstagers Volume 1. I was originally planning on lumping 1 and 2 together in a submission because I'm going to use my last less than 30-minute read for Magic Treehouse probably tomorrow, but maybe tonight. And I thought these would read quickly, and they do, but it took me more than 30 minutes. So I gave this 5 stars. I'm so glad I have the 2nd volume to work on right now, and I also checked out the 3rd volume for my library app, so hoping that I get to that. This is such a fun comic series. It's about this group called the Backstagers, and they work backstage. They're basically the tech kids at their high school. Their backstage is like this really magical area where all the hallways like rearrange themselves, and there are these weird fantastical creatures, and I love the cast of characters. They're so fun. I love the artwork so much. Like, it's so fun to look at. I could just sit here and stare at some of these characters for a really long time, and as a theater kid myself, this was extra fun to read, which is why I picked it up when I saw it, because I was like, ooh, I'll probably really like this, and I did. I loved it so much. If I had to pick a favorite character, I think it's probably Sasha. He's so ridiculous. Let me see if I can find like a panel that shows you what Sasha is. Here's one. This little dude is Sasha. That's him like the whole time, and I love him so much, but I love all the characters. This was just so fun. So glad I read that. And then I finished The Grapes of Wrath, and I've been silently working on this the whole readathon because I was doing a buddy read with somebody else, but I finally finished it today. I was not making much progress, and then a couple days ago I got the audiobook and listened to that while I used my eyeballs, which really helped me. Usually when I read books, I read faster than an audiobook can go, but in this case, I was having trouble paying attention at some points, and the audiobook really helps me with that, especially because the characters all have like accents and it's all written phonetically, and so it takes my brain forever to read that, but listening to it was so much easier. So shout out to the audiobook for helping me get through this. I'm giving this 3.5 stars. It's not my favorite Steinbeck I've read, but it's still really good. In case you don't know, it's about this family during the Great Depression and like the Dust Bowl migration. They're moving from Oklahoma, I think it is, to go out west to try and pick fruit to make their livelihood, and it's just a really interesting like historical look one, but then also like exploration of a family, so I enjoyed it. And then, much to Bailey's delight, I finished reading Unwind by Neil Shusterman. I've been meaning to read this basically, so I've actually been meaning to read this since before I became friends with Bailey and like met Bailey, but it's been more of a I'm looking forward to this book since meeting Bailey, because Unwind is one of Bailey's favorite books like of all time, and it stood up to me. I gave it a 4.5, which she agrees is like a totally fair and awesome rating given that I have no nostalgia attached to it like she does. Unwind is a dystopian book where parents can decide to have their children unwound, which basically means that every part of them will go to someone else in like a transplant type way. So in this way, they're not dead. So there are these great discussions of what is life, what is death, and all these things. And also the laws that surround unwinding come from like a debate about pro-life versus pro-choice and all of those things. So there were some interesting discussions to be had. I really found all of the characters interesting in their own ways and didn't at all see where the story was going. Like, okay, when I started it, I thought I knew like where it would end, and I was pretty much right in that, but how we got there was totally different than what I was expecting. Neil Shusterman continues to write incredible dystopian books. I have read and loved the Scythe series. All of those I use for science points. I've been talking to you forever, but let's really quick have a discussion about what's been happening in the Discord today. Basically, my team's plan right now is to lay low. Our goal was to be as low as we could be while still not being like suspiciously too low for the final points update, and then like quietly and quickly making things up. We're currently over 1,000 wonder points away from everybody else. So I think we still look really weak to them, but we currently have 87 points. So since the points update on Thursday night, it's now Saturday night, we have gained almost 70 points, which is insane. And I know the other teams are earning points, but our hope was that in not looking like a threat, Ephesus would turn their attacks to the other teams. This has so far been working out. I really don't want to jinx us, but so far things are looking good because, okay, Babylon got hit twice with the really big damages over the course of the past few days. And now Ephesus is finally ahead of Rhodes in military points. So they've been attacking them relentlessly because they're only a little ways away from them in military points. So they're not giving them a whole ton of damage. So I feel like what they're thinking right now is that they have to use every possible bingo they can to decrease that number, because in the points update, Rhodes was way ahead of everybody. I mean, they had like over 120 points, while the person in second place had like 57. I'm just waiting for them to bring Rhodes down a little bit. I know Rhodes is still gonna be reading and earning points, but I'm just hoping they close the gap a little. I still don't think we're going to be able to pull off a win. I'm hoping for like a pretty good standing, even if it's third place. I would rather not lose. Things are looking good so far. I'm a little concerned because Babylon has been really quiet, so I don't know what they're thinking or doing, especially because their wonder is so high, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. One day more, folks. Good morning. It's a very rainy Sunday, the perfect type of day for one more kick butt day of reading before I collapse on the ground in a heap. Last night I finished 2 books that I wanted to talk to you about. The first is Samira Surfs, which is a story about this girl, Samira, whose family flees and they go to a refugee camp in Bangladesh, and there she ends up learning to surf. This was a really fun story in spite of the really heavy things that it dealt with at times, and I'm giving it 4 stars. And then I read the second volume of The Backstagers, which it turns out, so I was like confused when I read the first one. So this is technically the end of the story, but the third volume is like, it follows the Backstagers, but in like special ways, so on holidays like Halloween and Valentine's Day. But I did have access to the end of the story, which is what I wanted and was like worried about yesterday after I read the first volume, because these were originally published in like 8 things, and apparently volume 1 was the first 4 and volume 2 is the second 4. I gave this 4.5 stars. It wasn't as good as the first one to me, but I still loved it so much because these characters have my entire heart. Sasha continued to be the funniest thing. I laughed out loud and like for a while at some of the things Sasha said and did in this volume. I just really love this series, so yay. And again, both of those were for science points, which were over 100 points now in the positive. And we were at like 20 points on the Thursday night 8 p.m. points update. So I'm super proud of us no matter what happens, and I'm like for sure positive that we're gonna be hit with some big damage as like a last hurrah thing, probably from Ephesus at the end of the day. Regardless, I'm so proud of my team because we came back and we kicked butt from a really like low place. We'll see. I have lots more books that I want to finish today. We'll just have to see where this all ends. It's 2:19 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, and I'm once again here to deliver a long monologue about a ridiculous number of books. Sorry, my Wonderthon vlogs have not been very interesting and very just me sitting here talking to you heavy. Honestly, Wonderthon has been lots of me sitting here reading heavy, so that's on that. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books to talk to you about. Why do I do this? Okay, I'm gonna try to make it fast. I read Rhinos at Recess, which is the most recent Magic Treehouse book. It actually just came out this year. I gave it 4 stars, fun time. Moving on. I read The Maze Cutter, which is the start of a new series by James Dashner. I gave it 2 stars. Like many of the other reviews said, I just don't understand why this exists, and I didn't care about it or the characters in the slightest. I didn't actively dislike it like a lot, which is why it still got a 2 star, but I didn't care. Not at all. I was very bleh about it. Then I read this book, Half Magic, and I gave it a 3.5 stars. At the beginning I was like, maybe 4 or 4.5. Then as it went, it just, okay, I really liked the concept behind it, but it just got a bit old after a while. So the idea behind this story is basically that these kids find this magic coin and it grants them wishes, but only like halfway, which is why it's called Half Magic. So they get up to a bunch of stuff over that. And I really loved the more ordinary magic moments that they had and cared a lot less about like the grand adventure parts. So there's that, but I'm glad that I read it, and I think kids should definitely read this one. They'd absolutely love it. And then I quickly listened to the audiobook for Ellen DeGeneres' book The Funny Thing Is, which I'm giving 3 stars. It was fun but nothing special. It just felt like one of her stand-up routines, but also not, and it wasn't like a cohesive book story moment. Nothing serious in it at all, which is fine. But one of my favorite things about reading books from famous people is like actually getting insight into them and their lives, which I definitely didn't do with this, but it was a fun read. And then I read Death by Didgeridoo, which is a really short cozy mystery. It's only like 100 pages, and I got it for free the other day on Kindle, and I'm so happy I did. Okay, was it accurate the whole time about things? No. Was it a rollicking good time? I thought so. And was it an easy read? Yes. So I'm giving that 3 stars. I just am tickled pink about the idea that there is a book that exists in this world where a didgeridoo is used as the murder weapon. I think didgeridoos are so cool. I love listening to didgeridoo music, especially there are a couple artists who play electric guitar and didgeridoo at the same time, and I'm like obsessed with it. That was really fun, but as far as silly books go, that was one of them, and I read it and I had a good time. And then the reason that I actually worked up the energy to sit here and have this update with you, because I've clearly been avoiding it all day, was that I read Flamer by Mike Curato, which is a graphic novel that follows this boy Aiden during his summer at a Boy Scout camp. And at first I wasn't thinking too much into this, but then the second half really hurt and got me, and it's just left me a little like tender. So basically in this, we're following him at Boy Scout camp, and he's raised very religious. He's been to a religious private school for his whole life so far, but next year he's going to a public high school, and it's also set in like the 90s, so that's the context of it. He's kind of like finding out that maybe he's not like as straight as he initially thought. The boys at Boy Scout camp are just really mean, and he goes to a very dark place with this. And the author shared that like a lot of this was inspired by experiences that he had growing up, especially like the really hard part to read about. And so I'm really grateful for the author for sharing this book. It's not an easy read, and it's not like a lighthearted graphic novel type situation. It's a like, ow, this hurts, and it really sucks to read about, but it's important for other kids to know that they're not the only ones feeling this way. I gave it 4 stars, and that's on that. I used all of them for science points. I'm so freshly finished with this, I haven't even updated it yet, so I'm gonna go do that now. And we're having some final push reading sprints within the hour, so I'll be doing that, but hello, I am so mentally and emotionally tired. It's 5:44, but I think I probably just submitted my last book. So on sprints, I finished 2 books. I finished The Moon Within, which I gave 4.5 stars. It's a really great middle grade book written in verse that's kind of like New Age, Are You There God? It's Me, Margaret. It's about this girl approaching puberty and her mom wants to throw her a party whenever she gets her first period, and her best friend is also going through the process of coming out as gender fluid. This was just such a special book in so many ways, and I really, really loved it. And then I finished listening to the audiobook for Bob by Wendy Mass and somebody else, and I'm giving that 3 stars. The parts that I could pay attention to were really great. My brain's not here. My brain is not here, and I'm so scared. So I'll see you tomorrow when we find things out. Okay, I knew they were gonna hit us and then I was gonna hurt. This isn't even the last of the battles. They just hit us 3 times for 10 watermelons each. We're negative over 300. Over 300 negative points right now. My goal to at least end in the positive is done. We're dead in the water. This GIF, that's exactly how I feel. Well, it's been fun. Look at this. Gorgeous. Hello, I'm emotional and unwell. So after we took ghosts away, my team got 3rd place. The final stats were crazy. At one point, literally yesterday, we were winning. We took the most damage out of any team, but we also gained the most positive points out of any team. I'm so proud of my team. We also got an award for the most coordinated. I think my team just worked so well together, and I'm so proud of them. And even in moments when I couldn't handle the stress of this readathon, they really raised me up, and I cannot express my gratitude for my team enough. I read a heck ton, but I genuinely had the best time getting to know some of these people more, and I hope I get to know them even more in the future. So if you were on Team Giza strong, know that I love you and I appreciate you, and I'm just glad you took a chance and you joined my team, and I'm really proud of our 3rd place. 3 is my lucky number, so. But with that, I'm going to end this vlog here. If you'd like to go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below, what did you think of all this? What was your favorite moment of this readathon, whether through watching my vlogs or experiencing it live, or even both, depending on if you participated or not. And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!